Okay. So one of the things I love about this place is dedicated to helping spiritual people live better lives. Is that true? How many of you would identify that you're spiritual? Right? How many of you want to live a better life? Right? How fun is that? Right? Do you realize not everybody identifies with that? There's some people who are just done. They're baked. They don't want to live a better life. They've already got it all figured out. They know exactly how they're going to do it. They're just going to keep doing the same thing they've always done over and over again until they just take their last breath. And there's nothing wrong with that, but that's not what this place is dedicated to. This place is really dedicated to helping spiritual people who are curious to live better lives. And the thing that's mandatory to really hang out here for this place to make sense is you have to be curious. Because if you're not curious, there's really no point in being here. Like, why would you come week after week if there wasn't some part of your soul that was curious to see, is there a way that I could live a better life? Are there spiritual principles and practices and ideas that I could apply to my life in such a way that my life would become fuller and richer, that I could have a deeper relationship with the people around me, and feel greater connection to God? Because over and over again, that's what it all leads to. Is the more that we put God at the focus, the center of our life, the better our lives become. Is that true? And for many of us, it's a practice. For many of us, we started with this idea that God was out there somewhere. And we were trying to connect with a God that was out there. And the more that we come, the more that we experience the true spirituality, we realize, oh, God's not out there, God's right here. God is right in the midst of me and all around me. And I want to really deepen that connection, and I want to live a life that focuses on that. Myrtle Fillmore, the co-founder of Unity, yesterday was her birthday, and one of my favorite quotes of hers is, all of us sooner or later come to the place in our development where we're no longer satisfied to go on living the old life without acknowledging our oneness with God, without connecting to the source of our being. And for most of us here, we're hungry for that. We want to know more God. We want to know more God in us, more God at the core, at the center of who we are, and to really experience that. How many of you were raised in a family where when you were growing up, you thought everybody lived the way you lived? Right? You just assume that everybody grew up with your family values and the way your family thought and taught and acted and behaved. And then we get to college or we get to school or we leave home and we realize, wait a minute. There's a whole lot of people out there that aren't living the way my family's living. And some of that was like, wow, that's interesting. They really believe that. They really act that way. They really say that stuff. Right? And it's kind of a little bit of a mind fry. Can I say that in church? It's a little bit of an awakening. Right? It's a little bit of a wow, that there's a much bigger world out there. And at that moment, we have a choice. Am I going to apply something new and see if it works for me? Charles Fillmore said, don't take my word for it. If it's spiritual principle, try it. If it works, you can use it, use it. If it doesn't work, let it go. Because we don't need more spiritual dogma. How many of you were taught a spiritual dogma, and the more you practice it, the more that you realize it may work for somebody, but it doesn't ever work for me? Right? And so we can try these dogmas and we can try them on, we can see they fit. But if it's not spiritually true, it doesn't matter how much you practice it, it's not going to work, it's not going to fit, it doesn't make sense. But those spiritual ideas that are truly spiritual, that are based in spiritual principles and facts, those things, when you try them on, they just seem to work. They feel like a glove that was always supposed to be yours, and you try them on and there's something inside of your soul that just knows it's right. And as a spiritual community, we're always in that process of saying, is this valid? Is this real? Can I live by this? Is 2 + 2 always 4? And can I apply that to my life? So this month, I'm going to share with you 4 spiritual ideas. And I'm going to invite you to try them on. Practice them for each week. And at the end of the week, if you don't think they're valid, if they didn't work for you, then let them go, because we don't need more dogma. But if they make sense to you, if you practice them, if they work, then I want you to try them on, because each one of these spiritual ideas, I am practicing in my own life to the very best of my ability. And I think that they're really 100% valid. And I think that as we practice them over and over again, they just makes a difference. And today what we're going to practice is this idea of living in the now. How many of you have ever heard this as a spiritual idea, that we're supposed to live in the now? What's difficult about this is how you do it. Because so much of our life seems to be focused on the future and the past. But every great spiritual teacher taught us to live in the now. And what I want to do is I want to kind of break it down today and show you how to do it in a way that's meaningful, and a way that we can reproduce it in our life over and over and over again. Because the reality is that statistically, 30% of Americans have diagnosable levels of anxiety. 18.1% of Americans are on anxiety medications of one form or another. So we have a world, we live in a country where almost one out of three of us have a level of anxiety in their life that is problematic, that gets in the way of their life, that gets in the way of their relationships, that gets in the way of their work, that gets in the way of their enjoyment of life. That means 1 in 3 of us in this room. Now, maybe it's not in this room and it's everybody else outside. It's really, everybody else here is good to go, and it's really 2/3 of the rest of the world, right? But the reality is that even in this room, there's a lot more anxiety than we like to acknowledge. And yet there's a spiritual principle that every great spiritual teacher and philosopher taught about living in the now. And the idea that if you live in the now, it is a way of actually setting yourself free of anxiety. Because the way that we're living now, the majority of us, the way that we're living now is highly charged with anxiety. It freaks us out. It scares us. We don't know about tomorrow. We worry about next week. We worry about our kids. We worry about our relationship. God knows we worry about who's going to be elected as the president. We're worried. We're anxious. We're fearful. And yet there's a spiritual teaching that says, if you live in the moment, you are set free. And yet, we don't believe it. We believe that if we stop worrying about our future, we're not going to have a future. If we stop worrying about our kids or our work or our relationships or our job or our business, we believe it's not going to work out. So we believe that somehow it's our responsibility to stay anxious enough that we create a better future. But that whole premise is kind of weird, right? That anxiety is going to produce a better future. Right? And spiritually, what we believe over and over again is that the inner life produces the outer experience. Is that true? That the inner life, your inner experience produces your outer experience. And yet, so if we believe that anxiety on the inside creates more life experiences of anxiety, being anxious is absolutely the worst thing you can do. If we're anxious about being safe, if we're anxious about, say it for me, anxious about crime, anxious about our economic future, we are actually creating a world where we just feel more and more anxious. So what if today we decide we're actually going to apply what every spiritual teacher taught? Couldn't hurt, right? How wrong could they be? You know, if every enlightened master taught this, maybe there's a reason that we're getting more and more anxious. And every spiritual teacher said, don't go that way. Try something else. Try something that works. Try something that leads to peace of mind. Try something that helps your soul calm down. This is the way Jesus said it. In the Gospel of Mark, he said, therefore, do not worry, say, what shall I eat, or what shall I drink, or what should I wear? He said, even the Gentiles strive for these things. And indeed, your heavenly Father knows that you need them all. But strive first for the kingdom of God and its righteousness, and all things will be given to you as well. He goes on. It says, Do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will bring its own worries. And today's troubles are enough for today. How many of you feel like you have enough trouble for today? That you don't need to go looking for tomorrow's troubles today? That you got enough drama? If you don't have enough drama, there's always Jerry Springer. He's on 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I mean, if you want more drama, we got television loads of drama, right? And then he went on to say in Luke 12:25, who of you by worrying about anything can add a single hour to your lifespan? So if you cannot handle such small things, why do you worry about the rest? And Buddha said it this way, do not dwell on the past. Do not dream even of the future. Concentrate your mind on the present moment. Emily Dickinson said, forever is composed of nows. And Eleanor Roosevelt said, the purpose of life is to live it, to taste the experience to its utmost, to reach out eagerly without fear to newer and richer experiences. Ralph Waldo Emerson said, write it in your heart that every day is the best day of your year. Henry David Thoreau said, you must live in the present. Launch yourself into every wave. Find your eternity in each moment. Fools stand on their island of opportunity and look toward another island. There is no other land. There is no other life. There is only this moment. And Walt Whitman said, happiness, not in another place, but this place. Not in another hour, but in this hour. And my favorite philosopher said it this way, what day is it? It's today, squeaked Piglet. Oh, Pooh said, it's my favorite day. So if Jesus, Buddha, and Pooh all agree on something, right? I'm bringing out the heavy guns when I bring Jesus, Buddha, and Pooh to get you to make a spiritual change, right? Because the deal is that every spiritual teacher taught us to live right here, right now. So what does that mean? It means that instead of thinking about your past, instead of worrying about your future, you're going to bring your full focus into this moment. You're going to ask yourself, what am I feeling in this moment? What do I want in this moment? How does the sun feel on my skin in this moment? How does it feel to be alive in this moment? Can I feel my own heart beating? Can I feel the breath go in and out of my body? Can I feel the joy of simply being alive in this moment? Well, Richard, if I'm doing all that, I don't have time to plan for tomorrow. I don't have time to even worry about everything I've done in the past and all my regrets that I have. I know, isn't it beautiful? What if for just one day you lived fully in each moment, and when each moment expanded into the next moment, you were willing to take that ride, knowing that in each moment, if you were fully into that moment, that every moment that was created from it would only become greater and greater and greater, because what we teach is that the inner life creates the outer experience. So if we have peace in a moment, if we know the ecstasy of God in a moment, if we're enjoying a moment, then every moment that comes out of that moment has to be the fulfillment of that moment. Because if your inner life is the creator of everything, then the more that you know peace, the more that everything in your life works. And 30% of us could be diagnosed with profound anxiety. I want you to hear that conflict. That every great spiritual teacher brings us into the moment. And when we don't live in the moment, it freaks us out. I am fully committed to this moment. Will you say that with me? I am fully committed to this moment. Now let's say it like you actually mean it. Together? I am fully committed to this moment. One moment just like it's fun. Ready? I am fully committed to this moment. So today I'm going to give you 5 reasons why I absolutely believe that we need to live in the moment. Number 1, the present moment demands that you take dominion over your thoughts. Can I read that again? The present moment demands that you take dominion over your thoughts. How many of you ever had a hard time meditating? Right? Why is that? Well, for most people, the reason we don't meditate, we'll say it's because we don't have enough time. But that's not really true. The reason we don't meditate is that we have a really hard time taking dominion over our thoughts. We sit down to get quiet to meditate, and what happens is that we become painfully aware of how out of control our mind is. That our mind is going a mile a minute. It's thinking about this and the cleaning out the garbage disposal, and it's thinking about cleaning out the refrigerator, and did I do the ironing, and I wonder if I got a sack lunch to them in time for school. And our mind is going so fast that we know no peace. And so we can't sit down and meditate because our mind has been let loose, and it's a crazy monkey mind. And living in the now actually demands that you take dominion over your thoughts. That you take dominion over your mind. That every time you want to think about your past, you say, no, I'm going to stay in this moment. And every time you want to think about your future, it's no, I want to stay in this moment. What am I feeling in this moment? How does it feel to be me in this moment? What do I want in this moment? How does it feel to feel my heartbeat and my breath in this moment? How can I completely move into this moment? And what begins to happen if you're committed to living in the now is that you actually learn how to master your own mind. And a soul that learns how to master their own mind is set free. So every time you want to go to the past and tell that story one more time, how many of you have 3 or 4 stories that you just love to tell? And everybody that loves you has heard this story so many times, really, that they just never need to hear that story again. They could probably tell it better than you can tell it, right? Right? So what would happen if you didn't tell that story one more time and you just stayed in the present? How many of you have a favorite fear? Right? That when you're bored, you just kind of scare yourself with, right? Right? And what would happen if you just took dominion over that and just brought it down to the moment and just said, I'm going to live right here today. I'm going to live right now today. I'm not going to go backwards. I'm not even going to go forwards. I'm going to stay right here and take dominion and mastery over my own thoughts. That's 1. 2. 2 expands and heightens our experience of the moment. One of the things that happens when you're not spending all your time in the past or the future, you actually get to have profound moments in the middle of your life. You can actually feel connected to people around you. You actually feel connected to God. Everything, your joy, your peace, your love, your gratitude, actually goes through the roof because you're actually in the moment you're having. You're not ahead of it. You're not behind it. You're actually in the moment you're having. And when you're in the moment you're having, it opens to this incredible sense of bliss, of joy, of gratitude, of peace, because you're actually where you're supposed to be. And it's like, well, Richard, I don't really want to be where I'm supposed to be. Right? I want to be back there. I want to be up here. And it's like, no, really, you don't. Because when you live like that, it never leads to peace. But when you actually come into the moment and take the moment deep and have the experience that's right in front of you, it's like when the sunset is right in front of you, actually let yourself have it. When your grandkids are playing right in front of you, actually let yourself have it. When your spouse is actually in front of you, stop thinking and just be where you are. And see if everything in your life doesn't go from black and white to technicolor. Because your mind isn't arguing with reality. What if you got to be right there? 3. The third reason I think you need to live in the moment is it teaches us abundance. Now, I know you're going to think, well, no, my mind can actually imagine abundance. I can imagine winning the lottery, or I can imagine getting a bonus, or I can imagine Uncle Harry dropping dead and sending me all his money. But what I want you to see is that in the moment, everything that you need is provided. In the moment, in this moment, is there enough oxygen in this room? In this moment, do you have any need that's not being satisfied? If you stay in the moment, what begins to happen is you begin to learn that in every moment is an infinite experience of God. Will you say with me? In this moment, I have everything that I need. Together? In this moment, I have everything that I need. Let's get excited about that. In this moment, I have everything that I need. Now, how many times in your life can you have ever said that? In this moment, I have everything that I need. One more time. In this moment, I have everything that I need. Now, if you go from having a moment where you have everything that you need, can you imagine that the next moment is going to be like that moment? Where you're going to have everything that you need. That you're just going to roll from one moment to the next moment to the next moment where you have everything you need. Only when your mind tries to jump into the future that you scare yourself that you're not going to have enough. But in this moment, you have all the oxygen you're ever going to need. In fact, there's an abundance of oxygen in this room. We created a nice purple chair for you with like a ton of padding, right? You could like live hours in that chair, right? That you have everything that you need. And we go from moment to moment to moment to moment where we have everything that we need. And yet so many people are scared that they're not going to have enough. And yet everything you need is in every moment. Every moment is like a little egg. And in that egg, everything the baby chick needs. Every moment, everything that your soul needs is encased in that moment. This moment, I have everything that I need. Together? In this moment, I have everything that I need. One more time. In this moment, I have everything that I need. Number 4. Moving into the moment frees us of anxiety. It just does. When we move into this moment, our shoulders drop, our breath becomes normal, we relax, our tension just washes away. When we move into the moment, we are set free of all anxiety. And 5, when we move into the moment, it deepens our connection and our awareness of the divine. See, there's a reason that spiritual teachers lived in the ecstasy of God. There's a reason that spiritual teachers had a heightened sense of ecstasy. Because they didn't have to worry about things. And not because they were supernaturally blessed. They were blessed just like the rest of us. But they moved so much into the moment that they touched the ecstasy of God. That they lived in a profound sense of connection with the divine. And they lived in this profound sense of connection so fully and completely that other people would go to them because they wanted it. And what they would teach over and over and over and over again was this very simple way of moving into the moment. They taught people how to take dominion over their thoughts and move the whole focus of their attention into the moment they were having. And that moment would just open into the ecstasy of God. I'm going to close in your homework for this week. You ready for it? Your homework for this week is I want you to live 1 week in the moment. 1 week in one moment at a time. Now, if that overwhelms you, then pick Tuesday. Really? Nothing important ever happens on a Tuesday. Right? There's Monday, you got to go to work. There's things that have to get done on Monday. Wednesday, you're getting ready for the weekend. But Tuesday, Right? Tuesday is really just a space, right? So if you spent one day in the moment, Tuesday's your day. And Tuesday, what I want you to do is bring your full attention into every moment. Not go forward, not go back, not worry about your future, not think about all the mistakes you've made in the past, but just be present in the moment. And I have 3 statements, 3 thoughts that I'm going to invite you to think. Here they are. Number 1, this moment is all that matters. Will you say that with me? This moment is all that matters. 2, this moment has my full attention. Together? This moment has my full attention. One more time. This moment has my full attention. And number 3, this moment holds the ecstasy of God. Will you say that with me? This moment holds the ecstasy of God. One more time. This moment holds the ecstasy of God. 1 week. That's all I'm asking. You can go back to being freaked out next week. You can. You can go back to all the things you're doing, trying to manage your stress. This week, I want one thing. You take dominion over your thoughts. And every time you realize you're anxious, it's like, okay, am I thinking about the past? Am I thinking about the future? If I am, I'm going to bring myself into this moment and ask myself a couple questions. In this moment, what am I feeling? In this moment, what do I want? In this moment, can I feel God? Are you ready? Let's pray. I invite you to open your mind, your heart, your soul to the activity of God that is right here, right now. And this week, I invite you into a new relationship with God and with life. A relationship that actually sets your soul free of all anxiety. That you no longer need to worry about your life and what you will eat and what you will wear and what will happen next and how you'll pay for this or that, because God knows you need all those things. But God's going to ask you just to be present. And this, in every moment, just put your focus on God. Just put your focus on right where you are. For the glory of God is right here, right now. And so it is. Amen. God bless you all. Have a great week.